Welcome back, folks, to WP-Tonic this week in WordPress and SaaS. Folks, I'm back from my travels. I came back last night from Stockholm. Andrew's with me. He's not totally 100%, but he's getting there. He's a bit tired. And we've got a great guest. I'm going to destroy his name, Rahul Nagare. He'll put me right there. But I did pre-warn him, Tribe, that I'll destroy his name. Ragar, would you like to quickly give us a 20-second intro about yourself to the tribe?
Oh, yeah. So I'm Rahul. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Nestify. I've been doing web hosting since 2004. That makes me feel so old. But yeah, hosting is pretty much I've done my whole life, and I also like WordPress. That's where I spend most of my time. And happy to be a part of this podcast.
It's going to be a great discussion. We're going to be discussing WordPress hosting, a passion. If you discuss hosting or page builders in any podcast, it becomes your most popular one. So we're going to be discussing hosting, where hosting is in 2022. I'm going to get Rahul's perspective about all these plugin purchases from hosting companies, where he thinks hosting is. Then we're going to just discuss how he built up his company. It's going to be a great discussion. We're going to go for a break now. You'll hear messages from our two main sponsors. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. I'd like to point out we've got some great special offers from our sponsors. We've got some great recommendations of WordPress plugins and services that we highly recommend and use ourselves. You can get all these freebies by going to WP-Tonic/recommendations. So, Rahul, let's go straight into it. So, I think you said in your quick introduction, hosting and WordPress, you've been doing that from the start of your career, but how did you get into the crazy world of WordPress and especially hosting? Because that's really bonkers as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it is crazy, isn't it? So around the time I got out of college, I was really into Linux and computer networking. I used to have Cisco certifications. I don't keep up with them anymore. But my first job was web hosting support. Back then, it was cPanel. Everything was cPanel in 2004. Everyone was doing HTML sites, or then you had Joomla, or I'm sure you both remember custom PHP websites built in like CodeIgniter, or just like some random PHP scripts, and they used to have MySQL database, used to get hacked and everything. Anyway, so that's what I used to deal with, and more I started to see WordPress websites. People were doing interesting things, memberships. The content management was better. It had like a consistent user interface. It worked all the time. So that got me involved in WordPress. And over the years, it started growing more and more. The developer community was growing. Designer options were better. And around that time, I also started doing hosting for my friends and family. And like,
are they still your friends and family now?
not anymore. We don't talk anymore.
No,
So yeah, so I started doing this for my friends and family, and there was enough demand that I decided let's just do this full time. There's decent market share. It's growing. It seemed like the right time to get started.
All right, over to you, Andrew.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Just to be clear, why Jonathan said I'm not 100%, for those of you who don't follow me on Twitter and Facebook, I'm just getting over COVID, which I managed to catch when I was in WCEU Portugal. But I'm all good now, apart from a little bit tired, a little bit blocked up, you can hear. But Rahul, getting into hosting, you're using AWS at the moment, and you've got a couple of core things that you offer within your WordPress hosting. One is, how did you decide that AWS was for you? And in the WordPress space, there's a lot of hosting solutions. And so what did you see as some of the key things that people wanted out of hosting?
Oh, isn't that the $1 million question?
Isn't it though?
So like I like to say this a lot. the decision of picking a web host is, if you draw that, it would be a triangle of speed, support, and cost, and you can only pick two. So either have a fast host that has good support, but it's not going to be cheap, or you can have a cheap host with good enough speed, but the support is non-existent. And if you do find someone that has all three, most likely they're subsidized with venture capital, and you'll see in next few months they will either raise prices on you, or the support will go downhill, or GoDaddy will acquire them. There are no other options. So yeah, basically, like as a consumer, you have to decide which two of the three are important to you, and then you can't go wrong with any of the hosting providers out there. But you can either pick like fast and good, uh, or fast and cheap, or like one of the three basically. And another thing uh, that's more and more important now, the core web vitals, everyone is going crazy over the Google updates, and it has very little to do with your actual hosting, and a lot to do with your JavaScript, Facebook pixel, Google tag manager, YouTube videos you have on your website. So just because you have poor core web vital score, switching host is not going to do much good for your website. And then you need to do like front end optimization to actually get good results, good SEO ranking, and so on. So I believe that needs to be said a lot more than uh, what's been done out there right now.
So
So
on that note, sorry, John. On that
That's all
note,
right.
what does Nestify? What are your key differentials between Nestify and any other web host as far as managed work? You know, we have a lot of managed WordPress website
Right.
hosting
Well,
people.
that
What are your key differentials?
well, that's a whole subject in itself, isn't it, Andrew?
Yeah.
What do you actually mean by managed hosting? That is, I actually, Rahul, sorry, I think that would be. I don't know if you agree, Andrew,
Carry on.
Rahul, because I gathered by looking over your website that you actually there's a few people that offer offer Amazon Web Services as a solution, but they offer it through the developer. But you also seem to give some support as well. But in
Right.
your own mind, what do you think? What do you think managed WordPress hosting is? Because it's bandied around a lot, but I think it's so banded now, Rahu, that
Yeah.
it's become diluted as something that means anything. What's your own thoughts?
Yeah. So back in the old days, managed hosting meant you added server-side cache and basically charged double of regular hosting. That used to be managed hosting, but now like everyone is raising the game, and uh, you have to do like plugin updates, WordPress updates, uh, make sure. So this thing, like I mentioned that a lot. Even if you have like a blank WordPress site with like no important content on it, bots will still try to do like the WP login brute force attacks, try and hack your site because they want to use your site as a part of the bigger botnet and attack other sites. So security is more important than ever, and all of these malware, even if you use good plugins, premium plugins, they still have like different exploits. So you need some the hosting provider needs to be on top of all of these things. And unless you're spending day to day managing your WordPress site, uh, you, you're better off with someone else taking care of that for you. And if the provider is doing all of these things properly, I would call them managed WordPress hosting. Other than that, basically, you're just glorified cPanel.
Yeah, I just want to put this to you because it's a little bit of it's to do with me. I don't know. I'd be interested in see if Andrew's got the same feeling about it. Because I know a lot of this is me. I have a real It's not exactly a problem, but I understand it. But I find it a bit icky, where developers are told we'll provide this interface that will manage from Amazon Web Services or whoever the cloud provider is. And you'll be able to go to the client and say, we provide a hosting solution. But they've got no experience of Linux. They've got no experience of being a Linux administrator. They have no resources available. They're a good WordPress developer, but they're not a Linux administrator. And if something goes wrong with that Amazon Web Service installation, they can send a support ticket, but my experience is they might get an answer or they might not, because they're just a tiny little player in the world of Amazon Web Services.
Right.
And I've known this doesn't happen very often, but I've known a couple of occasions where developers just disappeared, and the client doesn't know where the website is. It doesn't know the login details to Amazon Web Services. They know nothing. And that's partly their responsibility. But I just don't see it as a good, a great advertisement for WordPress. Am I just First of all, I'll put that to Andrew before I put it to you. Andrew, is it just me, or is there any kind of truth in what I've just said?
Well, you were just about to say, am I just waffling? And you were close to it, but it's not, the whole, I'm joking here. The whole point is that we all offer managed WordPress website hosting. You can, we've got Nestify, we've got WP Engine, we've got Flywheel. What is the level of managed hosting? A lot of the people say, don't worry about your website. A lot of hosts say, don't worry about your website. We'll look after that. That, to me, is managed hosting. If you put it on a hosting platform and you're going to look after all the updates of the plugins, or at least tell me that my plugins need updating or I've got a security issue, that is managed WordPress hosting. You've got Pagely who are charging a couple of grand a month, $1,200 a month or whatever. You've got Nestify that, you've got some very, very strong premium pricing here going on, Rahul, which is, to me, it's right. People need to be educated. This is not a $2.50 a month hosting solution that you're offering. You're offering a managed solution, as far as I can see it. And what we've got to do is educate the people that are actually hosting websites. So it's from the business owners right through to the freelancers, right through to the high-end agencies. And there's a couple of control panels out there like RunCloud and Cloudways and whatever, and GridPane that help people like me manage my websites. But like Jonathan says, we're not Linux or Apache experts or Nginx. We don't know. And we also don't have the full access to the server either, because if we did, it would cause chaos. So Rahul, as a managed WordPress website hosting company, how do you manage the expectations of your customers, whoever they may be, whether they're just a website owner or whether they're a developer or freelancer or agency like ourselves? How do you manage those expectations? I think that's where Jonathan was coming from.
Yeah. So that's part of basically any business, picking your target customer and shaping your offering. And I'm sure it goes through different iterations, whether you're a developer or an agency or a hosting provider. At first, you try to appeal to everyone and say, you say yes to anyone who's paying you. And eventually, you get better at playing this game, and then you start saying no more frequently than you say yes. And then after that, you have a good enough understanding of who makes your best customer, and then you try and spend more time with your current customers, learn what their challenges are, and then basically set the expectations. And that also happened to us back in the days. We used to serve anyone and everyone, and eventually over time we learned that we're good at WooCommerce. We're solving challenges that not a lot of companies are solving. And the other segment was AWS by itself. They'll give you the nuts and bolts of the infrastructure. You build everything you want, and not a lot of people, even the AWS service providers, had a deeper understanding of WordPress. So that's where we decided to focus more and more. And now we work with companies like Sony, PetSmart, US government has some sites hosted with us, all of them on AWS. So
yeah, it's a good. I mean, it's a robust. Let's not forget that Netflix is hosted on AWS and the BBC. You know, and these massive. I think Netflix pay them something like, I don't know, $19 million a month for their hosting. That's pretty. It's a pretty big client, pretty important client. And AWS makes the money for Amazon, but the managed hosting bit. I now put my big website with you, Nestify. What's your job?
Yeah. So first of all, if it's a big website, we'll talk about the expectations. Are you expecting traffic in spikes? Like, do you go on Shark Tank and then you get 10,000 visitors per minute for the next couple of days? Or is it like a news website that we can just put a CDN in front of and let cache handle it, and people just visit it every day, but we don't have to do much? So that part of customer discovery is the step one. After that, once we know what your challenges are going to be, we'll migrate that site, make it faster and everything. But after that, keeping it up to date, keeping the server up to date. And if it's an important enough website, do you need high availability? Does it need to be hosted in multiple regions? All of that will go into that decision. And
yeah, what I think you're saying is you deal with the security, you deal with the Linux, you have a discussion with the client, find out what particular solution that you offer, so you kind of quasi customize it. But what I think you're saying, and I think Andrew would agree, is you're not going to deal with updating the plugins or conflict. They're going to need somebody to help them with that, or you're going to be dealing with an agency that's doing that and they're looking for you as a partner. Would I be right about that?
yeah, that's partly correct. We do WordPress updates, plugin updates as well.
Oh, you will?
And so it's part of the dashboard. You can either update all plugins or you can exclude like
you're off that. But if there's a conflict, there's got to be somebody that sorts out that conflict, doesn't it?
For the most part, like our support will go in, look at the logs and say, hey, WooCommerce updated last night. The best thing we'll do is we'll restore a backup of the plugin for you. But after that, we're not going to fix that WooCommerce bug. That's where your agency or developer will come in.
Yeah. So before we go, I think actually let's go for our break and we'll continue the discussion. I've got one question I want to ask you at the beginning, and then we'll probably go into the more business challenges you've faced. We're going to go for our break. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. I do a weekly newsletter. I do a great summary of the Friday Roundtable show. I also provide a really personal editorial. Last week's was about WordPress, WordCamp Europe, and about community. Something I thought was being overused, but I think you would agree, Andrew, there was a great community spirit, not only covert, but also a community spirit, Andrew, at WordCamp Europe.
It was. And if anybody is thinking, do I go to a WordCamp or a WordPress meetup or anything, then that's the first thing that you do. You go, if you've got an opportunity to go out there, even in these COVID times, and meet people that are in the same industry, whether they're competitors, whether they're colleagues, their friends, or new friends, then WordCamps and WordPress meetups are the place to be. So I highly recommend.
Yeah, so to get this newsletter, just go to WP-Tonic/newsletter. You'll be able to sign up for the newsletter there. So I think one of the things, what I'm interested to ask you, Rahul, is on your website, with WP-Tonic, and I think it would apply to WooCommerce as well, e-commerce websites, we specialize with our hosting partners with membership, coaching, membership, learning management system websites. Some of them are small, some of them are medium, some of them have thousands or tens of thousands of members. We have a couple that have about 10,000 members. So what I know, So what is the interplay between disk-based RAM and especially PH workers? Because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to PH workers in this mixture when you're dealing with larger demanding websites, which you can't use cache to solve the problem of performance. How does all this work? Maybe you can give, I know it's a big question, but you're the guy I thought to ask, and you can give some guidance.
So for PHP workers, I have been noodling with this idea of explaining PHP workers to a 5-year-old, and the analogy, I'm still like workshopping it, is if you go to a supermarket, you have all of these checkout lanes. Think of them as PHP workers, and the more PHP workers you have, the faster more people will be able to check out and do their billing and be on their way. If you don't have enough PHP workers, so let's say like you go to on a Wednesday afternoon, there's only one cashier and the queue starts piling up. People are just trying to get their lunch and be on their way, but the cashier is processing one person at a time. The same thing is with PHP workers. One PHP worker is going to handle one website visitor at a time, and when that's done, the next visitor, and so on and so on. So the more PHP workers you have, the faster the parallel processing will be. And another aspect to that is because like in the real world, one cashier will only handle one person at a time. But with computers, we can say one PHP worker can handle like 2 requests at the same time, back and forth. So essentially, you have this cashier working 2 registers at the same time, but basically going back and forth and processing them. So those 2 cache registers would be the CPU, and you can have like one PHP worker or the one cashier go through all of these checkout lanes and process everything, but it's just going to slow them down. It's going to slow everyone down. So ideally, you need one CPU for one PHP worker, and then just multiply that with however many people. So in case of like WooCommerce and LearnDash, the number of people that are accessing your website at the same time, that's how many PHP workers you will need.
So it is the PHP worker side of it, when you're dealing with WooCommerce or e-commerce or a learning management that has a reasonable amount of either people purchasing goods or members, the PHP worker level is going to be quite important to the performance, to the experience of either the purchase of a good or a member. Is that correct?
Yeah, that will basically decide how many people can access your site without slowing it down.
And is this something which a lot of hosting companies try and minimize? Because is there any kind of cost in providing enough PH workers compared to disk or RAM? Because the whole thing, because it's all cloud, a lot of this hosting now is cloud-based. It's Amazon Web Services, it's Google Cloud. There's a number of providers, so it's a little bit more complicated. Well, it's always been complicated, but it's a much more diverse landscape, isn't it? Am I right about the PH worker? Is there a cost about providing these PH workers in general?
So like if you decide to do it right, for every PHP worker, or for at least like 2 or 3 PHP workers, you need one CPU core. And if you just offer like 300 PHP workers and the server itself has like 4 CPUs, it's not going to mean much. So if you decide to do it right, then your infrastructure cost goes up. That's why like some of the good providers will put a limit on the number of PHP workers, and then if you need more resources, you pay more. But that's essentially providing you a guarantee that even if you had, let's say you have a hosting plan with 20 PHP workers and you actually do get 20 checkouts per second, if the host is doing this right, you will actually be able to handle that level of traffic. And if they say we don't charge for PHP workers, you can have however many you want, and suddenly you have 300 PHP workers, but not enough CPUs to actually do the backend processing, you're going to end up with a slow website, or you'll see timeouts on the e-commerce, and you lose transactions.
But my understanding of PHP workers is slightly less than yours. But you're the host. You're the man that's got the host. You're saying basically for every 4 PHP workers, you need 1 CPU, right?
Yeah, 3 to 4 at least.
How does that work in terms of scaling? So I've got my site that's handling 1,000 visitors an hour, and then all of a sudden it goes up to 10,000 visitors an hour. Do you auto scale? Do you give me extra CPUs and PHP workers, or how does that work from a scaling perspective?
So realistically, even if you have 10,000 visitors, how many of those are actually checking out at any given second? So usual conversion rate is like, let's say 2 or 3%. If it's a good website, out of those 10,000 visitors, you have maybe 20 or 30 checking out at the same time. If you have a server with 32 CPU cores, that's good enough in most cases. And then we work with sites that go beyond that, and then they have like 200 or 300 people checking out at the same time. At that point, you have either two options: either get like a 128 CPU core large server, keep everything simple, put everything on the same machine, or then you can use like AWS or Google Cloud and go horizontal, and then basically spin up more and more instances. Each one of them has like 16 or 32 PHP workers, and
Right.
then basically then you can scale as much as you want.
Right, and you would handle that process, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to click any buttons or pay any extra for that scaling. I've already got that scaling built in.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, because it is a confusing thing and this is what I want hosting providers to do. It really simplify the explanation to the end user, because we're not server guys. We don't build the servers. I'm sure we could if we learned about it, but we decided to sell websites rather than host them. But the language is confusing. Would you agree that the language is unnecessarily confusing, Rahul?
Yeah, some of that probably is intentional, because like every time a host says we are now a digital experience platform, they get to charge more, and then they say, excuse me, they say we now have PHP workers, whereas other people don't have PHP workers, although that's not true. Companies come up with these different terminologies. Serverless is the new one. Edge caching, like these are important concepts, but when they start putting them as a differentiator and as a marketing aspect, uh, it works in the company's interest to keep it like confusing to most people, so other providers don't say, hey, we also do that. There's no big deal in PHP workers.
Exactly, yeah, brilliant.
I think we're going to wrap it up now, folks. We're going to continue the discussion. I'm going to be asking Rahul about some of his experience about building up his hosting Nestify, some of the lessons he's learned. It should be a great continualization of this great interview. So, Rahul, how can people find out more about you and your great company?
So I'm getting back more and more into writing some of these things, talking about AWS and scaling. It's mostly on the Nestify blog. If you go to nestify.io/blog, we recently wrote an article of how much it will actually cost if you decide to go with AWS, and what the options are, what the costs involved are. So yeah, blog would be a good press.
Perfect.
And Andrew, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to? And how's it going with your great plugin solution for copywriting?
Bertha AI is going pretty well, I've got to say. We had some interesting meetings, partnership meetings in wherever we were. Portugal. I've got COVID brain, unfortunately, it's going a bit dull. We met up with some lovely people at WCEU, and there'll be a few announcements coming up in the next couple of weeks. But basically, yeah, Bertha.ai is sponsoring a little summit next week as well, pagebuildersummit.com. So, people can find me on there, and also at Arnie Palmer on Twitter.
That's great.
Hopefully I'll be over COVID by the end of next week, because it's doing me head in.
Yeah. Well, it's difficult, isn't it? So, like I say, join us for the bonus content. You do that by going to the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel. It's been growing quite a bit recently. We've got some great content on there, great interviews, plus the roundtable, plus additional content that I put up every week on the channel. We'll be back next week with another great guest, another great interview. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye. So, bonus content. So, what do you feel have been some of the major lessons in building Nestify, especially in the kind of WordPress ecosystem, that you would have liked to have known a bit earlier than you worked out? Because obviously you've worked out a few things because you've been going for a few years now. But what was some of the things you wished you could have told yourself a bit earlier?
First one would be invest in SEO, because Google ads cost like $40 a click now in WordPress ecosystem. It's just an insane way of getting customers. If I had invested in SEO sooner, I would be the guy with Lamborghini. I don't know if you saw the Laravel guy with he got a new Lamborghini, and now everyone is saying PHP pays so well. People have Lamborghinis, so that could have been me if I had invested.
They don't cost that much. A second-hand Lamborghini doesn't cost that much, let me tell you. I've got a mate of mine who owns a Lamborghini garage. You pick one up for 100 grand, $200 a month over 10 years. It's not a big deal.
They're always in the they're always in the garage, and you get enormous maintenance things.
I'll stick to my camper van, thank you.
Yeah. So SEO, and what anything else? So SEO, so I think what you're saying is content. Investing in writing, blogging, content management around SEO. You relied on paid traffic. Anything else that you wished you could have told yourself at the beginning that would have accelerated the journey?
Other thing that keeps me up is I should have picked the target customers sooner. Now we know we're a good fit for WooCommerce and these corporate clients that have to use AWS for compliance reasons and so on. But if we had come to this conclusion sooner, it would have saved us a lot of heartache and trying different pricing experiments, different website copy and positioning. So picking your target customer, that was a big one.
Well, sorry, John. I think that's a very valuable point, Rahul. A lot of us are, we throw out the scattergun approach and say, right, we'll have you, we'd have you, and you alluded to it earlier in the conversation in the main part as well. Niching down doesn't mean that a niche doesn't mean small. Niche means specialism, right? So you know who your customer avatar is. You, like Jonathan, he knows his customers need a learning management system. It's simple as that. I've got a girl that I coach.
I see where you can, but on reflection, I've niched down even more, Andrew, because
you've got to do it.
I didn't niche enough, Andrew. I really kind of aimed the content at coaches, and also we got some very specific verticals that we're writing some new content for that based. But I think in such a large market, really identifying and really trying to understand your client is the key, isn't it, in some ways? So another question, I see it, the hosting is dominated by some very large players, like GoDaddy, Bluehost. Then you got WP Engine, you got Liquid Web. You got some very big players, but the reality is my understanding of hosting. It's still a very fragmented market. But why have you got any in your own mind why, like, WP Engine announced last week that they bought a number of plugins from Delicious Brain? You've had Liquid Web by LearnDash. Last week you've had Animator enter the hosting arena, and they just bought Static. Have you got any insight why they are buying these plugins? Because it's not always totally clear to me why they're doing it. Is it? Have you thought about it, and have you come to any conclusions?
My simplest explanation is it's just getting so expensive to reach these WordPress end users, getting more customers. It's cheaper to buy a plugin, and then suddenly you have like these.
I don't think you're wrong.
These 10,000 loyal users of that plugin suddenly know about your hosting company. That's one. Like that's the.
I think that's so insightful, because I never thought of that. I tend to go a bit too deep. You've just stated the obvious there, really.
Customer acquisition. It always has been about customer acquisition. If you can buy somebody that's got, the Elementor and Static purchase, I don't think is about customer acquisition. I think that's more of a hosting solution. Elementor needed a hosting solution of their own. And I think but there's certainly the WP Engine with buying all the Delicious Brains plugins, and Stellar WP being set up by the Liquid Web group, and they set up a whole new company to purchase these plugins so that they can cross market and do a little bit of as I say, cross marketing and customer acquisition. So you're spot on there, Rahul. Absolutely spot on. I'm just going to agree with you. I'm not even going to add anything to it, because you hit the nail on the head. It's about customer acquisition and how much it costs. So it's cheaper to buy a plugin.
Like I say, I sometimes overthink stuff, and I think what you're just saying is it was linked to paid acquisition through Google adverts from Facebook. It's just become so expensive that it's just cheaper to buy a plugin, and that's got a great following, and then you can market your hosting to these people. It's that simple, really.
Yeah.
And I think the more expensive the plugin, the better quality client you're going to get as well. If people are spending, I don't know, $30, $50, $100 a month on a plugin, then they're not going to really worry too much what their hosting is going to cost, right? So,
So I gather from our discussion and from your website, you do not exclusively, because you've got a semi-large group of corporate clients, but you target WordPress agencies and digital agencies. Through your relationship with these agencies, are you aware of any kind of trends or difficulties that you observe that they're having with the WordPress ecosystem? What kind of feedback have you got over the past 6-7 months?
So the biggest one was Core Web Vitals. You can't talk to an SEO agency without them bringing up page speed. And now Google is, before it was just for the mobile devices. Now the desktop rankings are also going to consider Core Web Vitals. So everyone is concerned with that. And like 6 months ago, or 6 to 8 months ago, the only good option was NitroPack. And people have different opinions for and against. But
can you quickly explain what that is?
Yeah, so NitroPack is essentially a caching and optimization plugin. You install that, and suddenly your page speed goes to 100. And at first I thought it was like some black magic, or they're doing some black hat stuff, maybe not black magic, but black hat stuff, and they're basically fooling Google into giving you the perfect score. But basically, they're just doing like critical CSS for your website, and then delaying all of the JavaScript until like the visitor moves their mouse or something. And probably NitroPack was the first one to do that, and now WP Rocket does it, Perf Matters. You have a number of options. Basically, everyone is delaying JavaScript, and then suddenly you have good page speed scores. We also built a plugin for Nestify that's basically doing the same thing, just hold off on the JavaScript until the user actually does something, and then suddenly you see a significant boost in page speed, and the core web vitals metrics start to work out in your favor.
Oh, it's frozen.
Another one is you're seeing more and more hosts offer Cloudflare Enterprise and basically edge caching. Your website is stored on like 200 or 300 locations in the world. So if you have a visitor from California, your website will still be fast, and then someone visits from New York, your site will still be fast. So that's another trend. We'll see more and more of that. Basically, those two like both cater to the fact that everyone needs to have a fast website in order to rank on Google.
And it would be. I mean, my view of this, and I saw a couple of hosts saying, right, we're offering Cloudflare Enterprise as part of our packages, and basically, the world's web host is going to be Cloudflare. Yes, it's going to be sitting on a server somewhere. It might be on an AWS server, it might be on your own Nginx server or Linux servers, whatever you're using. But if everyone's going through Cloudflare, that's only one point of failure, right? I know it's about 50 points of failure, but it's still Cloudflare goes down.
And
we're all
if you remember last year, Cloudflare had some DNS issues, and like
I do.
We're going to see more and more of that. And at least on Nestify, we're not using Cloudflare. We're going with AWS CloudFront. It's slightly faster, and then we don't charge extra for it, but people get better performance. So I guess we can say if Cloudflare is down, your website will still work. But then if Amazon goes down, I'd rather not mention that.
Well, it does. I mean, Amazon does go down. In fact, only about 3 to 5 weeks ago, I think Amazon went down for a little while in certain places. But I mean, what people don't realize is that the internet is basically a bunch of computers talking to each other. And if one of those critical computers goes down, then everybody's website goes down. Maybe, Rahul, for the future, let's build a Cloudflare together.
I've just got kind of one question. Because in no shape or form am I expert, nor do I want to become a hosting expert, but I do follow the industry a little bit. So Doxer technology, it seems to be the in thing for a while. How has that changed the industry, and how does it fit into everything we've discussed in a way?
Docker?
Yeah.
Docker, yeah.
So, like Docker was one of the first container providers that actually did the developer experience properly. Before that, like I'm sure you both remember the old days of like Virtuoso VPS and OpenVZ and stuff like that. Basically, those were still containers, but they were not as cool as Docker made it sound. Essentially, like what Docker has enabled the industry to do is you buy like a large instance from Amazon or Hetzner or DigitalOcean, what have you, and then basically you can host 100 customers on that same instance, keeping your costs down. But then from a security standpoint, none of them can see each other's stuff. That's basically what Docker is doing.
It's containerized. Convisio do the same thing. There's a lot of people using, and when you buy a DigitalOcean server, you can add different containers on it yourself. You can do it manually. It's not but Docker has just made it easier. Convisio actually have their another managed WordPress solution out there for hosting. They do. They kind of specialize in vertical rather than horizontal hosting. They kind of do top down rather than side to side. Which is. Tom thinks that's the best way to move forward with that. And I think containerized, it's just another word for basically what we've done is we've got a server, and we're making your particular section of that server run independently of every single other thing that's on that server. We've containerized it. We've just we've encapsulated it. That's all you're going to get.
Are there any particular problems with that particular technology that somebody has to understand?
So again, like with any other, basically shared hosting gets a bad rap, but it's essentially shared hosting. Even with containers, you're just like
Exactly.
you have the nicer fence, but it's still shared. So if you have like noisy neighbors, you're still going to run into the same issues, like your website randomly gets slow and you don't know why. So yeah, it's basically the same challenge as shared hosting, but with a fancier name. And at least people who do containerized hosting don't have like 10,000 websites on the same server, compared to
Exactly.
the old cPanel days where like it didn't cost them anything extra to just put like a few more customers in.
Yeah, I think we wrap it up. I think the main thing I gathered from this is that yes, the technology is important, but the ethics and the attitude of the person, the business, and the leadership team behind the hosting provider still matters. You
Yeah,
know, are they
I,
there for the medium long term, or are they just there to? It's always the same, I think, no matter what technology you're in. It's been a fantastic discussion. You have to come
of
back.
course.
We're gonna. Andrew has to go back to his sick bed and try and recover a bit more.
I've got to do later, so I've got to wake up again.
Yeah, we will be back soon, folks. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Rahul. Really good to meet you.
thanks
Good luck with
everyone.
it.